Hello and welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint Show. I am your host, Jay Jones. Black Entrepreneur Blueprint was created specifically to educate and inspire Black entrepreneurs to launch, build, and grow successful businesses. Join us as we help build an economic power base in the Black community by promoting business ownership. If you are currently an entrepreneur or want to be an entrepreneur, we invite you to join us every week here at Black Entrepreneur Blueprint.
Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, episode number 308. I'm your host, Jay Jones, and today we have another outstanding show in store for you, family. Today, because of the recent events and the historical events that are going on in the country and in the world right now, we're going to divert from our normal Black Entrepreneur Blueprint talk. I feel that having a platform, I have a duty to address social issues as well as economic issues. And unfortunately, a lot of those sometimes are intertwined. So today's show topic, family, is Black Power versus White Supremacy. No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace. Black Power versus White Supremacy. Now, let me just start off by saying that I don't have a hateful bone in my body for anybody, but I do recognize white supremacy and racism is my enemy. Let me repeat that. I don't hate anybody, but I recognize white supremacy and racism is my enemy. So any system, organization, or persons that try to further that agenda, they've basically declared war on me, my family, and my people. So don't get it twisted. So it's time for us to understand that this is a war. And if you don't believe that, then you need to go back in your history. Now, I can read off, and you know what? I think I'm going to do that. Just for the people who don't understand that this is a war, I'm just going to read off some of the things that the government and also organizations have tried to levy against Black people and our fight for equality and freedom. So you have going back, and I'm not going to say in any particular order, you have the Mississippi Sovereignty Commission, and you guys can look this up. You have Robert Moses. So if anybody's in Long Island, Robert Moses Parkway, you know he was as racist as they get. OK, so he built parkways and he built bridges over the parkway that wouldn't allow buses from the city to come in because they're too low, because back at the time he built them, that only Black and brown people were riding buses. They weren't driving as much. So in order to keep Long Island, quote unquote, lily white, he, as the city planner, basically set up those highways and bridges to keep Black people out. Now, I'm just going to list up some more here so you can do the research. The slave codes, doctrine of exclusion, the King Alfred Plan, also called Rex 84, the Southern Manifesto, the Casual Killing Act, which turned into part of the slave codes. You have the Racial Covenant for Housing Discrimination. You have the 1866 Indian Treaty. You have the Tuskegee Experiment. You have the Benign Neglect Policy by Patrick Moynihan and the Democrats. Yeah, he was a Democrat. You have the Elaine Massacre in Arkansas in 1919. You have the KKK Act of 1871. You have the Scottsboro Boys, the Southern strategy used by Republicans, the White Declaration of Independence, the Freedmen's Bank story, basically America bombing the Congo under the guise of 10 nuns. Okay. Rosewood, and obviously Black Wall Street, which just celebrated the 99th anniversary of one of the greatest or the greatest tragedy on the American grounds in the country of the United States. Homegrown terrorism. Okay, it is what it is. So I just laid out probably about 20 to 25 things that you need to research if you don't believe that there's a war going on. There's always been a war. And let me explain to you why. And at the end, guys, I'm going to talk about some solutions. We all know the problems. But I'm going to start talking about some solutions. So what happened after slavery? Okay, before we were assets to the white man, right? And when I say white man, I'm not talking about everybody, and I'm not painting them as a picture. But those are the people that propagate this white supremacy and racism. Okay. And once again, I'll tell you again, anybody that propagates and supports that, I don't care if you're a system, an organization, or a person, then you've declared war on me, my family, and my people. And so there's two things you can do in the war, guys. And I'm speaking to any white people that are listening, Latinos, any ethnicity, any race. There's only two things you can do in the war. Number one, you can either fight or you can be silently complicit. And you're just as bad if you're silently complicit. If you are anybody with any sense of fairness and righteousness in your heart, you know what the black folk have been going through for 400 plus years in the United States is wrong. And if you don't use your white privilege to help change it, then you're a part of the problem. The only people that can change this are white people. OK, now you see what's going on right now. We're rioting because we're a frustrated people. I talked to my cousin the other day who'd been in human resources for 25 plus years at some of your major banks and institutions. And we were talking about this. And he says one of the first things that he says is, you know, this is white supremacy and racism. He said, you're the cause of it and you can fix it. So let's make it happen. So if you're silently complicit, you're just as bad. You might as well go over there and put your Klan hood on or your MAGA hat on. Because if you have any decency in your heart, you know what's going on is wrong. I just read out 20 to 25 different strategies, tactics, and all types of things that white supremacy uses to shut black people down, to make us depress, oppress, suppress, repress, whatever you want to call it. So once again, in a war, you can either fight, you can run away and be silently complicit, to me, which you might as well just get on their side. So we're going to talk at the end, guys, about some of the solutions. And we're talking about black power versus white supremacy. No justice, no peace. We're talking about George Floyd, Minneapolis, Minnesota, Breonna Taylor, Louisville, Kentucky, Ahmaud Arbery, Brunswick, Georgia, and the thousands and thousands more black people that have been murdered by the hands of so-called law enforcement. Okay, so I don't want to hear this nonsense that everybody's talking about black on black crime. If you look at the statistics, crime occurs black on black. If you're in a black neighborhood, that's going to occur. If you're in a white neighborhood, you're going to get white on white. You're in a Latin neighborhood, you're going to get Latin on Latin. What we're talking about are officers of the law that have been sworn in to protect and serve everybody in this country. And I don't want to hear all of this patriot BS. People talking about the Constitution. You can't even spell Constitution, half of these idiots. Okay. If anybody should be out there fighting and doing and killing people like white folks have killed us for years, it should be us. We built this country. We built this country for free on the blood of our ancestors that worked from sun up to sundown, building something for you. And you dare say to me that this is your country? You don't own. I'm going to try to keep this PG. Man, look, don't get me started. We built this. We built this. Everything you got is on the back of us. You stole our inventions. You got free labor. Tell me who in the heck couldn't be wealthy if they had free labor? If you don't have to pay for labor, my God, what, you can't get wealthy? Yeah. And that's where that old money comes from. And let's think about it. Truly, what's different except the exterior of our skin? That's it. We all think alike, not alike, but we all think. We all have feelings. We breathe. We move the same way. But you created racism as a tool to downgrade us and uplift yourself. You know, and it's funny. A lot of people, a lot of white folk out there that don't want to face the facts. They, you know, if we did, and they're scared. See, what happens is when you have racism, it's basically based out of fear. You fear the black man. You fear the black woman. You fear that somebody is going to take, quote unquote, what is yours. Everything you got, you took. Everything you got, you took. Okay? And we're going to get into some of the solutions at the end of today's show. But I was talking to my good friend the other day, and the reason all of this is happening, family, is because power recognizes power. Power also recognizes weakness. And that's the position that we're in today. And we're going to talk about how we can become powerful again. Okay? We're going to talk about some of the things we can do to become powerful again. But anybody of any other color or ethnicity that thinks that racism and white supremacy do not exist, then I don't even have any words for you. Because obviously you're either mentally incapacitated or you have hate in your heart. You have hate in your heart. You know, and it's funny because a lot of the same things that had happened back in the 1800s, early 1900s are still happening today. You know, there's certain plays that white people bring out. And that's actually I'm writing another new book that's going to be out probably in a year. And it talks about white power, black power, white versus white supremacy. And there's certain plays that you see that even take place today. So you look at Emmett Till, obviously. What happened with Emmett Till? He supposedly whistled at a white lady. She called the rednecks over there. They ended up murdering and desecrating his body. Black Wall Street. Okay. Dickie Rowland was downtown Tulsa. Sarah Page, a white elevator operator, said after Dickie Rowland got on the elevator, he made some advances toward her. The elevator stops. He runs out of the building. She's screaming rape. They go pick him up, take him down to the courthouse. Shot is fired because some of the black men came down to protect and make sure that Dickie Rowland didn't get lynched. And that's when the riot started. And to add injury to insult to injustice, the white folks started deputizing anybody white. There are pictures of kids out there, 12, 14 years old with rifles and guns. And they decide to go down to the prosperous Tulsa, Oklahoma area of Greenwood, which is Black Wall Street. And because a lot of the brothers and sisters there were living better than the white folk, all they needed was just one little incident to validate them burning down everything in there, killing innocent people, and looting. So you want to talk about looting? Look at some of those pictures. We learned that from you. Okay? Y'all been looting ever since you got here, from the Native Americans, black folks, or whatever. But let me get back to Black Wall Street. So now what happens is they start looting because once again, we had very wealthy people in Black Wall Street. And to add insult to injury, after everything was over and the black business owners and homeowners tried to collect on their homeowners insurance, the white insurance company said, oh no, we can't pay out in order to get your building or your business or your home fixed because it was a riot that you black folks incited. So to add insult to industry, so insult to injustice, that's what it is. So when you're beholden on somebody to pay you, and we're going to talk about economics today. When you're beholden on somebody to pay you, they have the control. Okay? They have the control. So today, family, we're talking about no justice, no peace, black power versus white supremacy and what we need to do. Like I said, power recognizes power. So when you're growing up, you're in school, somebody's stealing your lunch money, they bullying you and all that. Bullies recognize when there's somebody that's weaker than them. But the only thing you have to do with a bully is punch them in the mouth one time, and they're going to turn and run away. And that's what white supremacy and racism is. It's a bully. And we got to learn how to weaponize our black dollars, organize, and be able to punch that bully in the mouth. But while we're beholden to them for making our money and making strides, then it's going to be very tough. That's why we need our own. The reason I can sit here on this podcast and say exactly what I want to say is because I don't take any advertisers, outside. Everything you hear on here is me. Now, I may start taking some black businesses on here to advertise on the podcast, but I did that specifically. I had major companies that come to me all the time. I'm actually giving up over $10,000 in income a month from sponsorship opportunities that I have turned down. And the reason I have turned them down is because I value my freedom, and I'm not getting tied up with anybody who can say, guess what, yo, Jay, we don't like what you said. We're snatching that money back from you. I'm never even going to get accustomed to that money. So I'm not going to miss it. It's about being independent, standing for what you believe in, and not just saying it. It's about doing it. So that's why I have the utmost respect for our freedom fighters that have given their lives, given their money. Muhammad Ali, heavyweight champion of the world, had principles enough to step away, take my title, take my earning income during the height of his career. So when y'all saw Ali come back after 70 and 71 against Joe Frazier, first he fought Bonavino before that in December, then Joe Frazier in March of 71, that wasn't even the best Ali. He gave up 3 years because of what he believed in. He gave up his money. That's a freedom fighter. He gave up his livelihood because of what he believed. What are you willing to give up? What are you willing to give up? You want equality? You want freedom? You want justice? What are you willing to give up, and what are you willing to give? How are you going to help? And we're going to talk about some of the ways and some of the things that we can do to better our position. So I just want to read some of these things again when I talk about we're in a war. So anybody that didn't believe me or I don't know what you're thinking realizes that this is a war. Now, I'm like I said at the opening, I don't hate anybody, but I recognize white supremacy and racism is my enemy. Those are my enemy. They're not looking to do nothing nice to Jay Jones. Okay? They're looking to squash me, to kill me, to suppress me, to quote unquote put me in my place. So any system, organization, or persons that try to further that agenda have declared war on me, my family, and my people. And you better recognize and understand that this is a war. So when people say white supremacy, that is a system. But then you also have people behind that system that are white supremacists. Not all white people are bad, obviously. Okay? We're not painting a broad brush. But anybody, like I said, that tries to further that agenda is your enemy. And some of the people you think are your friends really aren't your friends. They're your enemies. And a lot of that comes because they're not enlightened. And once again, if you sit silently, if you sit silent, you're complicit with white racism. If you're white and you're not doing something to fight this, you're complicit. And a lot of times I understand, I always talk about the point of enlightenment. And the point of enlightenment is when that light bulb goes off in your head and you're like, oh man, now I get it. I see what they were saying. And I was telling my daughters the other night, I've never seen such an outpouring. I've lived through the Rodney King beatings, all of that type of stuff. I've never seen the outpouring like I did with George Floyd and with everything being built up. Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. I've never seen the galvanization of people of all ethnicities, nationalities, and races come and put on a display to let everybody know that this is what it is. This isn't fair. This isn't right. And you expect, you hear all these like on Fox and all these other right-wing broadcasts talk about all the looting and all that nonsense. First of all, let's look at the root cause and the problem of that. How about we focus on the root cause? You take care of that, then guess what? The problem goes away. There's an anonymous quote. So I'm not going to chalk this up to me. And it's so right on time, family. It says, when you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. When you are accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. You're so used to being on top. And this is what you guys have to understand. If you're in a position of power, The last thing that you want to do is cede that power, meaning give up that power. Okay, so these folks, these white supremacists and racists, are going to do anything that they can, legally or illegally, to try to hold on to that quote unquote power that they think that they're owed. When once again, everything that they got in this country is built off of somebody else's back. Okay, you annihilated, vaporized the Indians. They're living on reservations. Alcoholism and drug use on reservations is out of this world. They tried to be nice. You gave them blankets with smallpox. Okay. You go over to Africa now, you're taking over the diamond industry, all types of industry. And I still don't understand how that happened. You know, I really don't. And I got to do some more research on that. Because if you got the numbers on these cats and you have armies, and we're going to talk about protection later on as one of the solutions, I don't understand how that works. And you're sucking out all the resources of the motherland, the diamonds, the fruits, the vegetables, everywhere. You're sucking it out. So there's two types of people out there. It's givers and then there's takers. But one thing I always used to tell my kids, and I tell anybody that wants to listen to this. See, we come from a place of community. We're a communal people. The land wasn't my land. The land is our land. We use the land together. We hunt on the land together. If I kill something, I'm coming back to feed the clan, the community. Okay? There was no division. And that's when the economics started coming in. So when the white man comes in here and he says, oh man, this is my 40 acres right here. Oh, Bob, he got 100 acres over here. Now they own that land as opposed to sharing it. And any profits that they make off of that land, be it growing, and we're the ones picking all the stuff, planting and picking it for them, then that creates class systems. Okay, so you have the rich and you have the poor. So you have the poor people work for the rich people. And so with us and the Native Americans, the land was everybody's. We planted together. We hunted together. It's not your land. It's our land that we use as a community. White man comes in and now the land gets cordoned off. It's cut up. So if Jay Jones only got a quarter of an acre over here, how am I going to take care of my family? I can't hardly plant anything there. I don't have enough room for livestock or anything. But somebody else who just decided that the hell with it, I'm coming over here and I'm taking 100 acres. And this is all mine. You know, you had the land grab out west. So a lot of people went out west. That was matter of fact, Tulsa, Oklahoma. That was a part of the land grab. People went out there and they got land. And it's just so ironic that I talk about Tulsa because, man, even back then, well, not even back then, especially back then, but it's still happening today. When you got land in Tulsa, when you went out there, it was stipulated that you could not sell your land to a white person, meaning you could not profit off your land by selling it to a white person. And what ended up happening is it actually worked in our benefit. So they didn't want you to make any money off a white person when all they do has been making money off of us for years. So once again, I just want to read some of these things for some of you whose eyes may be closed and don't understand that it's a real war. Mississippi Sovereignty Commission, designed specifically to repress and depress people in Mississippi. Robert Moses Parkway, all of y'all in Long Island, y'all know Robert Moses Parkway. Like I said, the slave codes, doctrine of exclusion, King Alfred plan. Okay. So the doctrine of exclusion, and I'm just going to read a piece of this so you'll really understand what it is. In 1683, the Maryland colony issued a public edict encouraging the separation of the races that became public policy. So all you people who talk about, oh, I'm not going to vote. Okay. Politicians create policy. You better vote. Stop playing. And we're going to get to that. All right. So the edict became known as the doctrine of exclusion. The edict stated that neither the existing black population, their descendants, nor any other blacks shall be permitted to enjoy the fruits of white society. I'm going to repeat that. This is the doctrine of exclusion. The edict stated that neither the existing black population, their descendants, nor any other blacks shall be permitted to enjoy the fruits of white society. Eventually, other colonies picked up on the edict and passed their own laws that collectively became known as the Slave Codes of 1705. Okay? The slave codes required all individuals, churches, businesses, organizations, schools, and all levels of government to teach, justify, and enforce the status of blacks as subordinate, excluded, non-competitive, non-compensated, managed workforce for the personal comfort and wealth of building white society. My God. This is an edict. I'm going to read this last part again. The slave codes required all individuals, churches who are supposed to be Christian, supposed to be, everybody's equal. She said the slave codes required all individuals, churches, businesses. You wondering why we can't get jobs in white corporations? This is something that's been inoculated and ingrained since 1705. It required all individuals, churches, businesses, organizations, schools, and all levels of government to teach, justify, and enforce the status of blacks as a subordinate, excluded, non-competitive, non-compensated, managed workforce for the personal comfort and wealth of building white society. Do you hear what I'm telling you? And the same thing is still going on today. They've subordinated us. They've excluded us. They've made us non-competitive, non-compensated, managed workforce for the personal comfort and wealth of white society. So here's what you need to understand, family. There's a war going on. And what happened was when we were property of the white man, we were an asset. Okay? Their books look real good when they had 400, 300 slaves over there doing all the work. When we got freed, we became a liability. Now we're competing with them. And so that's why when you look at all of these unions, okay, the vagrancy laws. So if you were after Reconstruction, if you were walking around in Charleston, South Carolina, and a lot of these places, and you didn't have papers, quote unquote, that you had a job, guess what they were legally able to do? Lock you up. Now you're back in jail. We're talking about the prison industrial complex, which is still this is the slavery, a new Jim Crow, Michelle Alexander, read it. And now, because you didn't have a job, because nobody wanted to give you a job, now you're back in jail and you back on the slave plantation. Okay. And these unions that they started, the unions were started because we had all the skilled labor and trade. We were the one building houses. We were the one doing iron work. If you're in the Charleston, South Carolina area, and if you ever go down to the Battery in downtown Charleston and you look at some of that beautiful iron work on a lot of those multi-million-dollar old slave mansions, that was done by black folks, skilled labor. Okay, the unions came in and said, oh, if you're not a part of the union, you can't do work here. So what does that do? That puts us right back basically into the slavery category. So that was right there. What was that? The doctrine of exclusion. You had the Southern Manifesto, which Trump basically ran on. The Southern Manifesto was a situation where the Southern folks were using keywords. They weren't saying, the N-word and all of that stuff, but they were talking about the urban area and all of this stuff, the code words for black folk. OK, and basically they were talking to their constituents, just like Trump does now when he talks about, I'm going to go and, if you loot, we're going to shoot. We're going to put the dogs on them and all of that stuff. That's going back to Bull Connor, all of these idiots right there back in the day. Casual Killing Act turned into part of the slave code. So if your slave ran away or whatever, or got into an altercation with a white person, they killed them. Oh, well, Casual Killing Act. We lost another one. And that was legal. So legal doesn't mean right. Don't get it twisted. Legal does not mean right. OK, you had just recently, I just sent this to one of my buddies. There were no black has won a Mississippi statewide office in 129 years. I don't know if they won it, but recently, this was a couple months ago. So now you look at the racial covenant for housing discrimination. So you heard of redlining, right? So all of these facets of the quote unquote system, which is white supremacy and racism, are woven into the legal system and basically everything, the life of us here in the United States. You also had the 1866 Indian Treaty, okay, where they hired Indians to go and grab runaway slaves. So everybody talking about, oh, I'm part Indian and all that. Not all Indians were good, all right? Yeah, we did have mixes of blacks and Indians, but everybody talking about, hey, look, man, you know, Dr. John Henry Clark, I believe, has a lecture that says you have no friends. And you better go listen to that. I think it was him. You have no friends. You got the Tuskegee experiment, okay? You got the benign neglect policy, all right? You got the Elaine massacre in Arkansas in 1919. KKK Act of 1871, Scottsboro Boys. All of this stuff y'all need to start looking up. All right, Dr. Claude Anderson talks a lot about this in several of his books. You have the Southern Strategy. I talked about that. There's actually a white Declaration of Independence. Okay, the Freedmen's Bank story. All right, all our black folk put our money in the Freedmen's Bank, but they let a white person run the bank, and guess what happened? He absconded with most of the money. And what happened to him? Nothing. Okay. Rosewood. Matter of fact, I just talked to a brother that his wife, she went to college because her family owned land in Rosewood that got burned down and got compensated. And his wife actually went to college on that money from her family. You got P.W. Botha, who is the South African president years ago, talking about racism openly in Parliament. And obviously, you know what they were doing back then anyway. So if you don't think there's a war, guys, you're sadly mistaken. And once again, I'm not talking about everybody. But if you support white supremacy and racism, you declare war on us. So I know, you know, a lot of Christians turn the other cheek. We tried that. And I'm not advocating violence in any manner, only to protect yourself. Okay? Only to protect yourself. Somebody comes and steps to you and tries to hurt you or your family, you have every right to defend yourself and your family by any means necessary, right? So now I'll just tell you about a little thing that happened in Philly the other day. There's an area called Fishtown, right? So Fishtown is a lot of poor white folks live. Now they're trying to gentrify it a little bit and get build it up a little bit. But now during, and you guys probably saw it, but during the curfew, they had a whole bunch of there's a lot of Irish, Italian stuff down there in Fishtown. They were out there during the curfew walking around with baseball bats, clubs, golf clubs, talking about they protecting their neighborhood, and the cops just drive right by them. If a dude put on a helmet and had a stick, he would have been murdered, a black dude. So this is what I'm talking about. If you can't understand that it's a war right now, then I can't help you. You need to turn this off and go watch Disney or something like that. Now, don't even get me started on Disney, because if you start looking at his cartoons back in the day, he was racist as hell too. All right. So we're talking about today, guys, no justice, no peace, black power versus white supremacy. And we're going to start talking about some of the solutions and how we combat this. And we're dedicating this show to every brother and sister that have lost their lives due to racism, white supremacy. We're talking about, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and any other brothers and sisters. And let me just say this too. I had a conversation with my daughters the other night, and it didn't turn out good. But they were talking about intersectional black folks that are intersectional. So be it transgender, gay, LGBTQ, whatever. And I told them, I said, I don't care if you're a one-legged black man and a Republican. If you're black, I'm for you. So I'm not excluding anybody on this platform. If you're black, if you're African American, African, Latino, and I know some Latinos don't even want to acknowledge that they got African blood in them. But if you're listening to this, you probably are one of those that will acknowledge. So I'm for every black person. I don't care your sexual orientation. I don't care. You light skin, you dark skin, you're fat, skinny, you got one leg, two legs, no legs. I don't care. This is all about the economic empowerment, the upliftment of the black community all across the board. All across the board. A high tide rises all ships. Okay? And I just want to say this real quick, too, before I start getting into the solutions. So when you see there's different ways to attack this. And mine is from an economic perspective. That's why I do Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, the podcast, the blog, and I've created those platforms to help us circulate black dollars in the worldwide black economy. Now, there are other people that create rallies. There are other people that do different things. So you will never hear me on this platform or any other platform knock any other sister or brother who thinks there's a different way to get to the same solution. So a lot of people complain, hey, all we do is rally. Those rallies make a difference. That's a physical show of support for the cause. Now, don't let the rallies get diluted now. A lot of times, just like it's civil rights, instead of black rights, Martin Luther King had to create, quote unquote, the civil rights bill. And now everybody and their grandmom jumped on that. OK, so I'm unapologetically black on my podcast, and I do that on purpose. I'm black. Why not? You got other media outlets and media vehicles specifically for people. You got Jewish Defense League. OK, you got Al Dia, which is a Latina newspaper in Philly. You got Telemundo. So I don't want to hear anybody come up to me, or if anybody comes up to you and say, why y'all always focusing on black? Because that's what I am. And I got a love for my people. All right, so we're going to start talking real quick about some solutions. Hopefully y'all recognize and understand that we're in a war. Just look around. Look around. And it's not, a few incidences. It's been systematic. Systematic. You heard what I read to you. Systematic. The doctrine of exclusion. We're going to exclude them from everything good. Employment. Having the fruits of the white society. And there's still idiots today that don't know that the Civil War is over. Okay? They don't know it's over. They still out there thinking that the war is on. And there is a war. And one thing I will give them is they recognize that. We over here talking about integrating and we doing all of this. And yes, we've made advancements. But if you listen to Dr. Claude Anderson in terms of the economic advancements, it's still 0.5% of all the wealth in the United States is black folks. It was 100 years ago and it is today. And I trust what Baba Claude Anderson talks about. It's a man of much knowledge and respect. So I'm going with that. So, yes, we've made some advancements. But once again, a lot of that, guys, just because we're able to move into these neighborhoods, what you got to understand is there's a certain faction that's never going to accept us regardless. It doesn't matter how much money we have. Doesn't matter how many degrees we have. There's a certain faction that's not going to accept us. And these are the people that I'm talking about, these white supremacists and racists. And a lot of times you'll find them at the upper income level and also at the lower level. And a lot of that, the lower level is designed by the system itself. As long as a poor white man feels that he's better than a black man, even though the black man may make more money, higher educated or whatever, that poor white man, and you see it with Trump. Trump doesn't give a damn about poor people, but that poor, stupid ass white man is going to vote for Trump because Trump makes him feel more important than us, quote unquote, lowly black folk. So that's all part of the game. So you got to open your eyes and recognize and understand what's going on. Let's talk a little bit about some solutions. Let me grab some water real quick. All right. So y'all know Black Entrepreneur Blueprint is all about economic empowerment. So my whole platform in my lane, that's what I was telling my daughters. My lane is about economic empowerment. My lane isn't, about other stuff. We need people to create marches, galvanize and all that stuff. But if you get your economics right, everything else will follow. Like the shirt I created says, there's no revolution without economics. No revolution without economics. You can't find me a revolution that didn't have some type of economic support. Okay? Maybe in Haiti with Macandal, Toussaint, Jean-Jacques Dessalines. Okay? But if you look at even Cuba and Castro, he had to get his backing from Russia because he went to the United States first and they turned him down. Because the U.S., he wanted to build an economy over there in Cuba where, it was going to be equality. What happened, U.S. said, nah, we ain't even doing that over here, man. You better get out of here. So he had to go to Russia, and Russia gladly backed him. So there's no revolution without economics. So the civil rights movement. We had black churches, black businesses. We had movie stars. You had corporations that helped support that. So that's why I always go back to a foundation of economics. So in the solutions, number one, you need to commit to economic empowerment. Commit to economic empowerment. And it starts right here, building and supporting black owned businesses. I'm so freaking tired. When I see a bunch of numbskulls that haven't hit that point of enlightenment yet, when you running around, and I gotta say it, you running around cooning and buffooning about a Popeye's chicken sandwich. You think ain't no black franchise owner of Popeyes? You over there giving up all your money, standing in line, cooning and buffooning. I seen so much. I mean, it was disgusting, stupid stuff about this stupid chicken sandwich, like you never had chicken before. So we need to build and support black-owned businesses. If y'all gave that much shine to black-owned businesses that you did Popeyes on social media, you probably would have created several millionaires. But our focus is unconscious. We're not conscious of that. So build and support black-owned businesses. And we're talking about the economics part of the solution. Then we have the politics. And we got a lot of influential, I guess you could say, black folks that don't, believe in voting. And I'm going to say right now, my position on that, I think it's the dumbest thing in the world. In addition to having our people literally die to earn the right to vote, and you disrespect that by doing that. That's my personal opinion. Some people going to agree with it, some people not. But let me give you some examples. All right. Politics creates policy. You ever heard of the 3-strike rule? Any of y'all families been affected by that? Somebody had two strikes and then they get that third one, parole violation, and now they sent away for the rest of their life. Anybody's grandmom ever get kicked out of their house? Got a grandmom in North Philly, been living in that house for 40 years. All of a sudden, the developers start greasing the palms of the politicians. And now that neighborhood that grandmom raised, your mom, your dad or whoever, been there 40 years, house paid off. And now, because it's now a redevelopment zone where they're starting to gentrify, and now grandma can't pay the taxes. So now grandma's been in that home for 40 plus years in North Philly. Now she got to try to find a place to live at 75, 80 years old because you didn't vote. Okay? Politics creates policies. So I hear what people are saying about the federal level and all of that good stuff. But if you're not voting in your local elections for your school board, okay, for your school board, your kids in school, do your kids have the same amenities as other schools? Does your black school have enough books or computers? Yeah, all of that is determined by policy. And policy is controlled by politics. So in terms of creating political action committees, being active in local, civic and political issues, federal also, you see what we got in the White House? You see this freaking idiot, this moron in the White House? If that doesn't get you up and going, then I don't know what will. So we're talking about some solutions. We're talking about some economic empowerment solutions right now. Build and support your own business. Be involved in politics, especially at the local level, obviously at the national level, but especially at the local level, because that's what's going to affect you. I know people who grandmoms and grandpops got kicked out of their spots because now they can't pay their taxes because they're trying to regentrify the area. Taxes were $2,000 a year. Now they up to $25,000 a year. Literally. And this is no joke. Grandmom and grandpop can't pay that. So guess what happens? They lose their house. Now, the developers who've been greasing the palms of the politicians come on in there, bulldoze everything down. They put up these new townhouses and condos. All because you didn't want to vote. You didn't protect the interests of your people. All right. Next, we're talking about economic empowerment. Economics controls the media. I say this all the time. There are very few black-owned television stations in this country. There are very few black-owned radio stations in this country. You got Radio One, obviously, and TV One. One runs on a platform that's cable that's controlled by white folks. Okay? They still own radio stations, though, but they're a publicly traded company. Now, why is the media so important? You see what's going on in the media now. You turn to Fox News and you'll see something totally different. They're talking about the looters and the rioters. They're not talking about why this is all happening. You turn to MSNBC or CNN and you see the left view, and that's fine. But why do you want other people to control the narrative? So I was just listening to a podcast the other day and they were talking about Adolf Hitler. So when Hitler came into power, one of the things that he did was he actually commissioned factories to build radios so they could give those, not sell them, to give those radios to the German household as they started their propaganda against the Jews. So the Jews were depicted in cartoons as rats and less than human. So the media, when you dehumanize somebody, it's easy to exterminate them, right? They're less than human. Okay, let's exterminate them. That was Hitler's plan. So if you don't understand and recognize the power of media, what we need to do is start controlling the media. Okay, we have the internet, guys. It's wide open. It's wide open, and we're using it right now. We got the internet. Start creating media-friendly sites that tell a story from our perspective. I had a conversation with one of my brothers the other day, good brother, about a year ago, rather. And I was like, yo, man, you listen to Sirius XM 126, Urban View, used to be called The Power. And he was like, nah, man, I listen to CNN. I said, man, that's cool. I said, but we need to start listening and getting our news from our perspective. Okay, we've been integrated so much that sometimes I think we don't even realize that we black. I'm joking about that. But sometimes we unconsciously don't support our own. You know, we need that narrative, just like Ebony and Jet and Essence back in the day when we would get that news. I remember when I was little, when my mom and dad got that Ebony magazine, that was speaking to us. That was speaking to us. And we got to support that. So we need the economics to make sure that we can control our own narrative. Okay. Economics controls education. And I touched on it. And this is something, guys, that I had an idea the other day. And I don't know if it can even be put into play or how it could be put into play. But education, you hear a lot of people talking about schools for black folks, which is great because there's certain things that we deal with that no other ethnicity has to deal with. There's certain ways that we have to walk. And when I mean, I'm not talking about physically walk, but ways we have to move through life so we can keep our lives. Okay, so there's so many things, but education is key. And I say this all the time, family. If your kids aren't getting the education that you think they deserve or need in your public school or your private school, guess what? That does not stop you from reading and teaching your kids black history. Because the only thing they learn in black history now is Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, and probably President Obama. But beside that, you got to fill in. So stop complaining about it and do what parents do. You fill in. So when you come home, when your kids are young, they come home, get them a set of black books, historical books, encyclopedias. You talk to them about black history. Let them know that they come from the loins of kings and queens, the creators of astrology, of math, of science, not the stuff that you see here. We're letting other people, our enemy, that's the system, educate our kids. The least you can do is share with them and let them know they're special, where we come from. Man, I used to have all these black history books, read to my kids when they were little. Let them know, yo, this is us. Don't listen to that nonsense, that idiot box that they're watching all day. Don't let them teach your kids. The job of the teacher at school is to give them their fundamentals. It's your job as a parent to round out those fundamentals. And if you see that there's something that's lacking, guess what? You need to fill that void. You should be the primary, not the secondary. Also, another thing with economics, guys, we got to build and support black banks. One United Bank. How many people got an account there? The largest black bank. I got mine. One United Bank. Support them. Okay. The other local black banks and credit unions out there too. Support them. They'll lend to us. They'll help build. You got your money in all these other banks, and what are they doing? You see what they're doing to us, right? Wells Fargo and all that stuff. So that's the solution in terms of the economics. The next thing we want to do, I want to really break down is the education. I touched on it a little bit, but I had an idea, just thinking the other day, how can we impact the youth? And if, we talked about black schools and, stuff like that, which is great. But if you don't have the wherewithal or the monies to start black schools, can we focus on a black focus after school program? So, you know how you have like the Kumon Learning Centers and all these other Mathnasium and all that after school stuff that helps tutor kids. How about if you had an after school program that was Afrocentric? So in addition to tutoring kids and helping them with their schoolwork, you also teach them about their history. Now you have a location where you can also use to have functions, plays, get-togethers. You can also take them on trips, to museums or whatever, cultural type things. Also, this is another thing, guys, you can use it as a meeting place. So what we want to talk about in terms of meeting, we need to organize. And I'll get to that in my next thing. But use it as a meeting place. So just imagine if you had a franchise system of these all around the country. And that's why I always talk about the power of the Nation of Islam. The power that the Black Panthers had, because they were large organizations, especially the Nation of Islam, but with local presences. They had one leader. That one leader was moving the organization the way that he sees fit. Be it Elijah Muhammad or the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And they have grassroots in the organization, in the communities that affect the communities. And that's what we really need to get back to. Creating that type of structure where we can affect on a local basis, which in turn will turn into a national basis. So if there was some type of black focus after school programs, be it a franchise or something like that, where our kids could be safe, they can learn, help with their schoolwork and also help with educating themselves. Because one of the biggest problems is if you feel that you're worthless, then you don't value your own life. Oh, I'm never going to be anything. So you're more susceptible to get caught in the streets, in the game. I don't have a future. Nobody loves me. I'm not worth anything anyway. So let me continue to perpetuate this nonsense. But the problem is a lot of the young brothers and sisters, that point of enlightenment hasn't hit yet. They don't understand their true worth, their true value, where they came from, the power that we have as a people. And so I hope eventually when we start to be able to control our own education, be it our own schools or after school programs or whatever, but we don't have to wait for that. And I touched on it earlier. It needs to start in your own home. You got young kids, you need to get some books for them. You need to read to them. Frederick Douglass, W.E.B. Du Bois. Talk about all of these great historical figures. Mary McLeod Bethune. all of these great historical figures, that they need to learn about. Because the only thing that we see, if we just look at the media as it is now, you would think that there were no great black people out there. You're going to get Barack Obama because he's still relevant and present. But before him, if you're a young kid, you're going like, well, Harriet Tubman, who's that? You may hear Harriet Tubman, Rosa Parks, Martin Luther King, and Barack Obama. You're not going to really hear about the cats that were fighting for freedom. Frederick Douglass and all those other cats. You may hear a little bit about that. All of the inventions that we create and that got stolen from us. It's another thing, guys. We weren't even allowed to trademark or patent anything back in the day. So a lot of these inventions that you see today, they were created by us. Our kids need to know that. So we're talking about summer solutions. And today's show topic is No Justice, No Peace, Black Power versus White Supremacy. And how we can fight that, how we can weaponize. First thing I talked about was commit to economic empowerment. Second thing I just talked about was control our own education. And you can do that very easily at home to supplement whatever's going on at school. And the last thing I want to talk about is commit to creating organized protection for our brothers and sisters and children. It's funny. I started off the show and I talked about power recognizes power. Power recognizes power. Power also recognizes weakness. So every other nation or nation state has an army. We don't. The closest thing that we have to a military organization specifically for our folks are the Fruit of Islam. We used to have the Black Panthers, and I know there's new Black Panthers and there's some other splintered organizations, but there's nothing that's organized, and that's the whole key. Organized. So I'm not saying we got to start a boot camp and all of that stuff, but protection. I used the analogy before. If a bully knows that he can come up, snatch your lunch money, every day he's going to do the same thing until you punch him in the mouth. And that's what we need to start doing. So if we don't have an organized form of protection, we need to start looking at that on a local basis. So that's what the Black Panthers did. They would follow police stops to make sure the brothers and sisters or children weren't hurt or roughed up by the cops. It's a new day now, right? And I forgot where it was, but I saw a group of black folk rushing some cops somewhere. I don't know where it was. It was on social media. But anything they do to that person that's detained, we need to do to them. I'm sorry. So when you just saw what happened to George Floyd, which was unconstitutional, if a lot of people were there and I don't, hey, look. Hey, you need to pull that fool off that brother. Now if it's one or two people and you outnumbered, I get it. But if there's a crowd of people there and somebody's getting murdered, take me to jail. Because I'm not going to sit there and let anybody get murdered without trying to help them. Now I might get murdered in the process, but look, that's what it's going to cost. Freedom ain't free, y'all. Freedom ain't free. And we all have to do our part to get where we want to go. So let's talk about protection. So creating local watchdog organizations that are going to monitor the streets. Okay, your local neighborhood. What's going on out there? Yo, are the police roughing up somebody? We need to be able to start creating that. But a lot of that comes also from having the places to go to be able to create that structure. So when I talked about these black focused after school programs, they could also double, that facility could also double for community meetings, community organization, community protection. Okay. So like I said, we need to create some type of local watchdog organizations and create a military like force to protect ourselves, because we're getting killed, guys. We're not getting lynched anymore in terms of physically with the noose, but we get murdered at a rate that's probably damn near the same. And it's on television now, it's live now, and they still doing it with impunity, meaning they don't care. They're doing it without repercussion. Once again, bullies always continue to do something until you knock their teeth out. Okay, so knocking their teeth out could be putting them in jail. Knocking their teeth out could be wrestling them off somebody if they're trying to use an aggressive or excessive force. Knocking their teeth out could be whatever. but we got to protect ourselves. How you going to walk down the street and you can't even protect your wife or your children because you're a black man? It's not a good feeling. It's not a good feeling. And if you do rise up, you see what happens. I saw in Baltimore, sucker punched a black lady after the black lady gave this white cop a two-piece. He came up from the side, from behind, and sucker punched it. And there's no repercussions. And sometimes you got those black people that always try to get the approval from white folk. That's even worse. That's the Negro. That's even worse. They want a pat on the head from the white man. Yeah, boss, I did good. So you got to watch out for them. So it ain't just about the color of your skin. It's about your integrity. It's about your intent. It's about your heart. And as I said in the opening, if you are somebody that is a fair-minded person, that's a righteous person, that believes in doing right, and you're white or any other ethnicity, and you stay silent during these times, you're complicit. We don't need that. You started it, and you can finish it. You started it, and you can finish it. And I'm going to go back to the quote. When you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. When you're accustomed to privilege, equality feels like oppression. So a lot of these white folk think they're entitled to 100% of everything. So even these set-asides that we get in government, which may be 5%, 95% ain't enough. And they always think that things are mutually exclusive, meaning that, a zero-sum game, excuse me. So that means if I get a job, that means that I took a job from a white person. I gain one, they lose one. That's not the case. Zero-sum game. That's what they equate it with. That's what that idiot in the White House, the code language and signals that he's giving out. The reason white folks that you're in the situation you are is because of these black folks and these Latinas. And so what does that do? That polarizes the dumbass white folks that truly believe that into turning into a racist and supporting white supremacy. So here's the thing, guys. I always talk about economic empowerment, and I just want to say this real quick before we close out. If you need to connect with me, I'm just going to give you my resource links real quick. My new book is out, guys, and this is about economics, A New Black Wall Street, circulating the black dollar worldwide by building successful e-commerce businesses. Go to anewblackwallstreet.com. Pick yourself up a copy, $14.95 for print, $9.95 for the digital version. Also, I've created a new compatible online course called BBAElite.com. It stands for Brand Builder Academy Elite. If you want to build a physical or digital products brand and make money via e-commerce, go to BBAElite.com. Also, I talked at the top of the show. I'm not just talking about it. I'm trying to create platforms to help people do it. So I've created 2 platforms to help circulate dollars in the black community. The first one is BeSmartByBlack.com. And what that is, it's a platform where any black product producers can upload their products for free to sell to black consumers worldwide. BeSmartByBlack.com. Upload your products is free. I've created another platform for black freelancers called Hire Black Freelancers, HIRE. Blackfreelancers.com. You're a black freelancer. You do stuff on Fiverr or freelancer.com. Upload your information. Okay. So black consumers and black businesses that are looking to spend money with black folk or black freelancers can find you. All right. Also, you can go to, let me just give you my email address and stuff, and then I'll give you the catch-all where you can find all of this information. If you need to email me for anything long, hit me at jjones@blackentrepreneurblueprint.com, JAYJONES at blackentrepreneurblueprint.com. Facebook, hit me on Facebook, Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Twitter, my handle is jjones001, JAYJONES001. Instagram, jjones for real, JAYJONES, the number 4, REAL. YouTube, fellas, ladies, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Just go to YouTube, type in Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, hit the like and subscribe button. I got additional content on YouTube that is not on the standard show. Yes, the show comes out on YouTube, but I have additional content on there too. LinkedIn, hit me up, J Jones, Black Entrepreneur Blueprint. Also, to be included in the BEB text line, For information and reminders about special events, text BEB to 555-888. Text BEB to 555-888. Now, that was a lot. So I got a catch-all page on my website. Now, my website is blackentrepreneurBlueprint.com, but the page is Connect, but I have a shortcut to that. So go to BEBconnect.com. It's BEB, like Black Entrepreneur Blueprint, BEBconnect.com. You will have a listing and links to all my social media contacts and all my resource links, including my book and all the other platforms that I just mentioned. Go to BEB Connect. Make sure, guys, that you subscribe to the podcast, the YouTube channel, and please continue to spread the word because we're trying to get this good word out here. So I wanted to give you guys all my contact information before we close it on out. Got a couple minutes left in the show. And what I want to close out with, guys, is it's really just a continuation or a plea for us to start being more active or proactive in terms of fighting this white supremacy. And everybody's got their own lane. Everybody's got their own platform. And even if you don't have a platform, you have people, your network. So whatever you can do to help fight off white supremacy, racism, and help support our brothers and sisters, we need to do that. And one of the easiest things to do, guys, is to support Black-owned businesses. Now, when I go out to talk and I give my book talks and speeches, and I've said this on the air before, only 2 cents of every dollar that a Black person has is spent on a Black-owned business. 2 cents. And that's a damn shame. Only 2 cents. So when you go out there and you start to spend your money, and I know a lot of times we do it unconsciously. We don't even think about it. But start thinking where you spend your money. So right now we're dealing with this pandemic and they've been shopping online. Over 50% of sales, guys, is done online. Okay. Amazon has a big piece of that. Obviously, eBay, Walmart, Target, Etsy, and all that type of stuff. But find and search out Black-owned businesses online. Don't tell me you don't shop online, because I know you do. Everybody does. Go and start searching out those businesses. I just did an interview on a podcast. I think it's going to come out a couple of weeks. But I was just talking about, like in my new book, A New Black Wall Street. Black Wall Street was a 36 square block area. Right now, the whole concept of the book, A New Black Wall Street, is to build Black e-commerce businesses that we can support because it's a worldwide economy. So now, literally at the tip of your fingertips, you can connect with anybody in the world. So let's start leveraging this technology to help build and support Black-owned businesses. And once again, when I talk about the solutions, the first one was commit to economic empowerment. Because if you have economic power, that allows you to create additional synergies, political power, power in the media, power to control your education, power to fight racism and white supremacy. It all starts with economics, guys. There's no revolution without economics. And the faster you understand that, the better off we're going to be. But it's not just about understanding that. It's about following up on that. It's about putting your money where your mouth is. It's about supporting your brothers and sisters who are out here starting businesses, trying to build businesses to be successful. Once again, this is crazy. So 1.3 trillion, I think, in the U.S. alone for Black folk. We have everything we need to create our own economy. Absolutely everything we need with the money we have. Yes, we need more schools, Black, based schools. Yes, we need hospitals. Yes, we need all of that stuff. But what we do have, if we just circulate instead of 2 cents out of every dollar, just imagine if we 10 times that and we started spending 20 cents out of every dollar on a Black-owned business. Just imagine what that can do. Just imagine how many millionaires that we can build. Just imagine how many companies that can grow that are going to hire other people that look like us that may not have the opportunity to be hired by somebody else. Think about that. Think about the impact you can make. Okay. And we got to start focusing on being the producer instead of the consumer. Stop being a daggone consumer all the time. Man, I can't wait until such and such this comes out, man. I got to get that. Why don't you make it? You know, I just did an interview with my man Paul Arrington, Denim Studio, designer. Brother's talented. Has basically closed some of the top stars and celebrities in Hollywood. And we talked about it on last week's episode about why people don't come to us like they look at Versace and Gucci and all that. You got cats spending all of their paper. Now, if you got it, expendable income, that's something different. But if you ain't paid your electric bill and you got bootleg cable and you wearing a Versace shirt, something is wrong. All right. So we got to get our priorities in order. And I know, we all like nice things, but there's a season for everything. Sometimes you got to take a step back to take 2 steps forward. There's a season for everything. Recognize and understand it's a war going on. It's a war going on. It's not even an invisible war, guys. It's visible. It's visible. There are forces right now that want to destroy you. They don't like you. They hate you. They think that we owe them something. You can see it on TV. Turn on Fox News and listen to the rhetoric. Look at the White House. Listen to the rhetoric. Look at the politicians and listen to the rhetoric. And you can see it right there. And I know a lot of times we're focusing. This ain't no excuse no more. You focusing on just making ends meet. I get that. But you're going to be focusing on that either way. Let's start being conscious of what we're doing, what we're spending, where we're spending it, what we're giving energy to, what we need to take energy away from. We're talking about no justice, no peace. Black power versus white supremacy. It's a war. And I'm going to close out with this because I hadn't read this in a long time. But once again, I'm just going to close out with the doctrine of exclusion. 1638 later became, well, let me go with the slave codes rather, in 1705, which came out of the doctrine of exclusion. Slave codes required all individuals, churches, businesses, organizations, schools, and all levels of government to teach, justify, and enforce the status of blacks as subordinate, excluded, non-competitive, non-compensated, managed workforce for the personal comfort and wealth building of white society. That was said in 1705, and it holds true today. Family, I got to say this each and every week before we close out. Today's show was a little different, but I felt with my platform I had to say something. This is who I am anyway. And I love to do more of this, but I want to stay on task and stay focused because I believe in economic empowerment. That's my lane. But each and every week we get more and more downloads because of you, the BEB family. Please continue to spread the word. This ain't a podcast, guys. This is a movement. My whole focus on creating this ecosystem of a new Black Wall Street, the book, Be Smart, Buy Black, Hire Black freelancer platforms is economic empowerment to build and support Black-owned businesses to create an economic power base in the Black economy, which we can then use to control other facets of our life, education, media, politics. So if you're listening to this, on the surface, it's about business, Black, entrepreneurship. But if you dig down deeper, it's a movement. It's about Black economic empowerment. I got a shirt, guys, that I created. It's dedicate, to educate, to elevate, to aggregate, to liberate. Dedicate yourself to your people. Dedicate yourself to learning something new. Dedicate yourself to building or supporting Black-owned businesses. Educate yourself. Okay? Educate yourself on something new. Create a trade. Start learning about different things. Okay? Elevate. That means take it up another level. Step your game up. Whatever your game is. You want to be a better entrepreneur. You want to be a better husband, a better father, a better son, a better wife, a better mother, a better aunt. Elevate yourself. Dedicate to educate, to elevate, to aggregate. Aggregate means come together. Our power isn't focused. We got $1.3 trillion that's spread out. It makes no dent whatsoever. We should be shutting businesses down. We should be weaponizing that aggregation of power, that dollar. You want to aggregate, come together. And the last thing is liberate. That's freedom. Dedicate to educate, to elevate, to aggregate, to liberate. And that's what we want. We want freedom. We want the rights that everybody else had. We built this. We died for this. We bled for this. We sweat for this. And still we get treated like subhuman people. Don't believe me? Go ahead and read the slave codes of 1705. I just read it to you again. Love you guys. I'll see you same time next week. Peace.